Have any of you ever heard the term credible messenger before? Yeah. So there's actually a program that's working to do support to at-risk youth called Credible Messenger. It's actually a national program that has a lot of satellites. There's a program here in Seattle that does this. I'm trying to remember the name of the organization. Anyway, the Credible Messenger program looks at things and says, you know what doesn't work? Experts from outside who have a lot of academic knowledge who come in and tell people how to fix their lives. Especially at-risk kids that are getting into trouble because they're experiencing all kinds of problems in their community and family lives, and they're not experiencing they don't have a strong peer support and intergenerational support group. So what the Credible Messenger program does is it says, let's find adults who have come out of those spaces, who have encountered some hope, some vision for the future, some sense of community, some sense of opportunity, some sense of reality. And let's just build some relationships. Now, it is not the same as, you guys remember the Scared Straight programs that were often on television, right? Where they send juveniles into prisons and they get these mad dog criminals to scare the Jesus out of them, as if that's going to work. Yeah, we know that transformation does not happen through fear, right? We know that transformation happens through liberation. And liberation often happens when we catch a vision. We get an insight, an epiphany, an understanding of the way things could be. Something to follow, a star to guide us. And so the Credible Messenger program says, you know what these kids really need is they need somebody who gets them, who can start with honoring them. Start with saying, yeah, man, been there. I got you. And I know where that goes, because I knew a lot of people who kept going on this road. I chose a different road, and it made all the difference. Sorry for Robert Fry. I'm sure that's not what happens in Credible Messenger program. But I think about the Credible Messenger, and I think about who are the Credible Messengers in my own life. Who are the people that were able to meet me exactly where I was, not tell me I should be different, not try to give me some advice, some sage wisdom from on high, but people who saw me and loved me from the start and identified with me, and then were able to share something out of that identification that opened a little space. Do you know who are credible messengers for you in your walk with faith? Who are the people that you trust to offer you some insight, some wisdom? Who you trust can help you see more clearly out of where you are, not just like something they have, something they know. And maybe even more importantly, why are they credible messengers to you? Anybody have a story or a brief example of somebody who is a credible messenger to them and really can tell us why are they a credible messenger? Yeah.
I actually have at least two. One sitting next to me. She's been there for me for the years she's been here. The choir. And the other is the help I'm getting from Peggy and Anita. Especially Anita, who's been helping me make my house right.
And what is it that these folks have demonstrated to you that has helped you trust that they're credible messengers of this God?
The love they put out, mainly, and the understanding they have. They are great for me. Thank you.
Thank you. The love they have and the understanding. I almost maybe use some words like welcome, honor, deep care. How weird is it that in the Gospels, at least the Gospel of Matthew, The two credible messengers we get about Jesus are a madman and some astrologers. Right? Like, these are the guys that are going to point us toward Jesus. This crazy dude out in the woods and these randos from somewhere else. Somehow they're going to point us to Jesus. Well, you know what else is interesting is in both of those stories, there's also these celestial events that happen simultaneously. So there's these kind of goofy outsider people, and then literally the heavens reveal Jesus, right? Whether it's the star that somehow points at a little house, I still don't get how that happens. There's lots of cool art about it. Sometimes you just got some divine intervention. Yeah. And then you got this thing like a dove descending from heaven, and you got this voice moving. And in Mark, the voice of God speaks to Jesus and affirms him, says, "You are my beloved." But in Matthew, it speaks to all the people and says, "This is my beloved," which is an interesting pivot, I find. The Gospel of Mark and Matthew have a very different sense of the call of Christ. And I think Matthew is really trying to communicate it to us. And so the credible messenger, maybe it's this crazy guy wearing camel's hair and eating locusts. And maybe it's this dove falling, and maybe it's this word being spoken. But the thing I think of for me is the thing that has made a messenger credible is not the words that they use, but the way that the word is alive in them. You know, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of words, a lot of explanations, a lot of information, and want to tell you how it is, they want to break it down. I am often one of those people. I'll just tell you. I remember sitting, I was at an airport, and I had like an extra amount of time, and there was this kid sitting there wearing some Bodhi beads. So anybody know what Bodhi beads are? So the Bodhi tree produces these small seeds that are almost spherical. And the Buddha made prayer beads out of these Bodhi beads. So if you ever see these very long necklaces, these kind of irregular, I don't know, kind of crusty looking round spheres, those are Bodhi beads, and they're prayer beads used in Buddhist meditation. And so I saw him this guy, and I went over to him and I started talking to him for a minute. And it turned out he had no idea what he was wearing. It had been given to him. He was just leaving a treatment program for substance abuse, and he was on his way to go be a peer counselor, basically be a credible messenger. And about 10 minutes into my sit next to him, he said, "You sure do talk a lot, don't you?" I was so embarrassed. I was just like, Jesus, what am I doing? And I realized, like, he gave me one piece of information, and he gave me one other piece of information, and I was filled in the rest of the time. I think about that a lot. You think about, God, how many times am I trying to like share this thing that I've thought of, these epiphanies that I've had, and I'm just not with this person. And that is an opportunity for me to reflect on. And am I trying to have all the words, or am I trying to let the word work through me? Because I don't think it's about the madman and the astrologers. I think it's about this encounter with them. There was this realization there's something more going on with these folks. There's something being revealed in them. You know, I don't know how seriously any of us in the rest of church really take this call to make disciples of all nations. I think sometimes we are terrified of evangelism. We're terrified of talking because we're afraid we're going to alienate people. And I think really it's because we've met people who had lots of words, right? And we were like, no, thank you. Right? Exactly. And hurt by it. I mean, how many people have you met with words that were really actually weapons? Right? And so I think that often we are terrified of talking about these epiphanies that we have, these encounters that we have, with God, Christ especially, with Jesus, with the Spirit at work in the world, because we're afraid that we're going to end up being people with lots of words, right? And we know that that doesn't work. It doesn't transform. It doesn't end up making us credible messengers. But the thing that does make us credible messengers is when the word is at work in us. When we let the word work on us. What does that look like? What does it feel like for the word to be at work in you? Have you had that experience? You know, does that mean something to you? For the word to be at work in you? What does it mean? Not a rhetorical question. I see you nodding, so I'm just going to hand you the mic.
Okay, well, I will say that I tune into music a lot, and so like there'll be hymns that we're looking at choir and sing in church, and they'll just come into my head sometimes at very appropriate times, sometimes inappropriate times. I don't know, but yeah, it's like a word of that song will resonate with me, and that's one way that I feel to work is through hymns. The music that just comes into my head.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. How many of you have sat there, you've been in somewhere, not doing anything, a little bit of boredom seeps in, all of a sudden, a song, something that gives you some buoyancy, some energy, allows you to just be there for a minute, comes into your body. Now, I know often we don't call that God's intervention, but what if we did? What if we did? What if we actually started trusting that God cares enough about us to intervene in random parts of our lives? What would that do for us? Sometimes we're worried that that will make us self-righteous people, the people that John is criticizing, right? He skipped a few verses where he talks about, you brood of vipers, who warned you of me coming back? We're worried we'll be those people with all those words about the coming wrath, and that we're the ones with the right relationship with God. Until we remember the God that we worship is the God who seeks right relationship with all people, who is constantly intervening in all people's lives, whether they notice it or not. So what if we just decided people that notice it? What if we decided to be people who are willing to have epiphanies brought on by God? What would that do for our willingness to be people changed by the word instead of just people with lots of words? Does anybody else have a story or an experience? What does it feel like to have the word work in you, work on you?
So most of you know that I was a special ed teacher, and I work with students with autism, most of them who did not speak at all. And there were many moments when I got an idea that that would help a student. And I really felt like my job in its entirety was a mission, basically. And when I had those ideas and I was able to make those things happen and help those students become more social or more connected or be able to, do math or reading or whatever, even though they didn't speak. That was, I think, God working through me.
Thank you. Oh, Joanne.
I've had so many awesome experiences in my life. As a photographer, my camera was usually with me. When it wasn't, I wish it was. But I have seen doves in clouds. I have seen angels in clouds. I have seen exclamation points and all kinds of different things in clouds. And they just appeared to me. And when a loved one passed, I saw a heart in a cloud. It was upside down, but it was there. And I have photographed so many of them to share with others. And I wondered how many others saw them and or didn't see them. So be aware of the clouds. It's amazing. I have a message for you. Just be aware of the beauty that's around us all the time. Because even on the darkest days, there's something beauty and love that we can see and that will make us feel better. I think that's God's light shining for us.
Yeah. That reminded, thank you so much, Joanne. That was absolutely beautiful. And it reminded me of something I wanted to share also, is that every time I see a butterfly, I mean, butterflies in the Pacific Northwest are not as common as they are in our side, the wet side, aren't as common as they are in meadows, for example, Eastern Oregon in the spring and early summer. And so when a butterfly comes into, especially a yellow tiger swallowtail, and I never understood why the tiger swallowtail was so special until I was talking to my friend Heather, who is my godparents' adopted daughter, and she said that every time she thinks about her mother, there's a tiger swallowtail. And if there is a tiger swallowtail flying through, she knows she has just been thinking about her mother. And her mother was very special to me. She was one of those credible ones. So I share that with you. For me, it's a very thrush, which looks like a robin that has more orange and has a black stripe. It's kind of rare here to see them. And all last year, I kept sighting for the last 2 years, I should say, as my dog was dying, we go on walks. I kept seeing these birds. They would show up at just extremely opportune times to give me a sense of God is looking out. Our universe has got things under control. They're caring about you. They're caring about Amber, caring about Raymond. It's going to be okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think we all feel the Lord when we do things that come to us naturally that are kind and cooperative. And walking next to a fellow across the crosswalk the other week, stumbles and almost falls, and I help him, and he's embarrassed. I said, "Oh no, I happens to me too. I've heard that." Or you wait for the car that needs to pull in front, or you don't curse out the person who doesn't know where they're going, so they're going too slow. Or you help the lost dog and you try to see if you can leave the license tag. I think we all do those things, and I think that's us naturally living.
Thank you.
God is actually at work in your life. Like actually, like all the time. What would it mean for you to believe that? What if all the omens and signs that you saw were actually God? Like, what if your subconscious is actually tapped into the divine? What if instead of just writing it off, you just accept it? For me, it's a bald eagle. Every time I see a bald eagle, there is something profound happening in my brain. There's some connection that I'm making, some memory that I'm having, some revelation. One just straight up flew over my marriage ceremony right when we were saying the vows. It was one, and then it was a different one, and then they joined each other over there, so we could see them, and no one else could walk. It was just, they might. What if I just decided that that's God at work in my life instead of just coincidence? I have a friend who says sacrednicity. Right? That there's God is working out. What are the divine epiphanies in your life that are worth following? And what are the divine epiphanies in your life that are calling you to share some of this gift that you're getting? Not to be people with lots of words, convincing people and selling Jesus, but the word at work that's revealing something expansive, something welcoming, something honoring, something that cares for each other and calls them further into something of God. You are a credible messenger to someone. Maybe you just don't know who that is. Maybe they just don't know who you are.